One of my favorite TV shows I used to watch faithfully around 11 o'clock every morning, weekday morning, was The Price is Right with Bob Barker. I never got much involved after Bob left the show, but I loved Bob Barker. I remember him when he was younger on another show called Truth and Consequences as well. He was a great host, and I don't know how many of you have seen that show? Oh, look at that, wow, okay, I'm not the only one who's an addict, okay, that's good. Well, as you know, on that show, contestants are called forward just spontaneously, oftentimes based upon the outlandish outfits which they happen to have on. They come to the front where they have a prize that comes out onto the stage, usually by a beautiful model, also help me watch the show. And the people will bid on it, and the idea is to get as close as you can without going over the amount of money. And then if you are so lucky, you're called up onto stage and win even more prizes. And then you go to spin the wheel. And when half the show is over, then the final half of the show is over. If you get closest to $1 without going over, you get to be in the big showcase. More and more goodies. And the one that has the most money from the earlier in terms of their gifts can have the first choice of which of the big showcases they want. And sometimes a person actually wins both showcases. I can't believe it. It's unbelievable. But here's the reality. A lot of those prizes never get claimed. They leave them there. Now why is that? To paraphrase Eugene O'Neill, the tax man cometh. Before you leave that show, you have to begin to think about the taxes you're going to owe on all those things. So, what happens is, not only are you have to be careful about getting the right prices, you have to focus in on what is going to be the cost of having the right price for that show. And in some sense, that's also the way life is. All three lessons today that Anne read to you talk about analyzing what is the price of a life and the cost involved in living that life. The book of Ecclesiastes, probably the most famous passage, is the 3rd chapter, which has been written to put the song, everything there's a season, and time for a purpose under heaven. It's a great little poem. I remember Judy Collins singing it, and the Birds singing it. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season and a time for a purpose under heaven. That was their song, not mine, obviously. But if you read the entire book of Ecclesiastes, my gosh, what a depressing, sad book it is. Now, the word vanity is not what we think about today. Vanity is not a piece of furniture in your house. It is not just having a personality that is vain or narcissistic or self-centered. Vanity is more like vapor. It's like trying to grab smoke in the air. You make a fist, you go for it, and it just dissipates, it goes away. You cannot grab it. He is saying all of life is like that. Another translation of that word is meaninglessness. Just absolutely no meaning in life. And you heard some of the things that Anne read today. He complained about. What good is it if I gain all these things? How hard is the labor I have? What good is it if I do this hard work? Someone comes along and takes it. Doesn't do a good job of holding on to it. What's it all about? Wisdom, knowledge, whatever it is he looks about in his book, there is very little of joy in his life. Very little joy. Sometimes people live that kind of life. Nothing seems to have purpose. Nothing seems to have meaning. It just doesn't make any sense. Why is there so much suffering? Why do we allow AK-47? Sorry about that. But again, you know, what kind of craziness do we have in this world? Can't begin to understand it. And we talk about God of love. How does God allow us to happen? What's going on with this? What is the cost? What is the price of my life? Friends, all these things, nothing seems to make any change, any difference. When it comes to the second story, the third one that Anne read is from the Gospel of St. Luke. A man comes to Jesus and wants him to be an arbitrator. He says, you know, we all have this kind of problem, don't we? I want you to help me with my family. There are some issues going on here. And the issue this time happens to be, how do we divide up an inheritance? And Jesus says to them, who made me the arbitrator of your life? You know. Then he tells them a story. The story is about a rich man who was very blessed by having land that was fruitful. And so he had great crops, he was able to sell them all, and then he realized he hadn't enough room to store all these things. And so he went ahead and tore down those barns and storage sheds and built bigger ones. And this is interesting in this. This is the only parable that Jesus tells where actually God's voice is in the parable. Because God says, you fool! You fool! Look how you have valued your life. And now it is to be taken away from you. Wow. In my ministry, I had done many weddings. And I've seen many people enjoy with lots of celebrations and gifts at their wedding time. I was very impressed this week when I saw on TV about a couple named Cameron. I think the names were Matt, forget the woman's name. But she's a teacher at Booker T. Washington School in Tampa, Florida. And instead of having wedding gifts, she said, I want school supplies. I want school supplies. And so people donated school supplies, way more than she could even imagine. Those who were not invited to the wedding gave school supplies. And just an abundance of outpouring. And that was one way she had of saying, this is what our love means to us. It's how I want to share that love with the world. Fantastic. I've done many, many funerals. And I'll say one thing about funerals. I have never, ever seen a hearse with a luggage rack. You cannot take it with you. You cannot take it with you. When it comes to the Colossians book, Paul is talking to a church that is having difficulties, as many of the churches are that Paul ministered to. In this case, they were losing their way, and Paul wanted to talk about the power of the risen Christ. Now, stop and pause for a moment. When Christ was teaching and preaching as a prophet here on earth, as God's Son, the disciples had problems understanding it. They always had difficulty comprehending what his life and ministry were all about. Some denied, some betrayed, they all deserted. They just were not really being great in their discipleship. But after his death, and after they had experience of the resurrection power, all their lives changed. And so Paul is asking the church of Colossae, which by the way today is actually part of Turkey, Paul is asking them to look for the higher things. Look at what value your life has. What price do you put on your life? Is it in things? Is it in success? Is it in power? Is that what the price of your life is all about? What's going to be the cost of that? And I gave the sermon title to Becky, the church secretary. She said, I asked her, what do you think this title means? You know, what is the price of your life? ... The cost is, she said, death. That's right, it is death. But that's not what I was going to say in my sermon. I'm not going to what I'm going to say. What I'm going to say is the cost is discipleship. The ability that you have to give is based on correlation of how you are trying to live out your lives in a new way as a disciple of this Jesus Christ. When Christ in his farewell speech said to the disciples, even more than these things I've done, you shall be able to do in my name. He was being prophetic about that. Because he healed some people. We have the power to heal a lot of people through medicine, through being able to help people in countries where they have disease and they need to have fresh water, they need to have medicines for malaria, nets for the children to have protection from mosquitoes. We can save thousands of lives. If we learn how to drive our cars reasonably, we can save thousands of lives. If we had real gun control, we could save thousands of lives. We can do an awful lot in the power of the risen Christ if only we live our lives as priceless people, but recognizing the cost is Christian discipleship. Now, you know, I am here as a UCC supply preacher and a member of the church, but I also confess to you that I am a Methodist, and I have a few quotes that I wanted to share with you, if I can find them, that speak to us of the value of what I'm talking about. Now, this is from John Wesley. Now, he was not a perfect person. He had many, many problems. The question is not how much money will I give to God, but how much of God's money will I keep for myself? Ooh, boy. Now, there's a course of discipleship. He says, man, I'm going to change it to human, or a person. When a person becomes a Christian, they have become industrious, trustworthy, and prosperous. Now, if that person, when he or she gets all he can and saves all he can, does not give all he can, I have more hope for Judas Iscariot than I have for that person in God's kingdom. Also, do you not know that God entrusted you with that money, all above what you need and necessary for your family, to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, to help the stranger, the widow, the fatherless, and indeed, as far as it will go, to relieve the wants of all humankind? How dare you defraud the Lord by applying it to any other purpose? The cost of discipleship. We struggle in our lives. We get caught up sometimes in addiction, we get caught up in getting the latest and best electronic gear that we could possibly find. And when I used to counsel people getting married, they had their children's funds set up for college before they even thought about giving $1 to charity or $1 to the church. What's that all about? What is the value of your life? Christ has given you life in abundance, life with fulfillment. You are priceless. Don't waste it on things that have a price tag. But live your lives as faithful disciples of Christ. And you will do even greater things than our Lord accomplished here on earth.